Certainly, the Diddy trial has a lot of people in the entertainment industry scared to death because as more things continue to come out about the things that happened with Diddy, with the people Diddy knows, with his friends, with his acquaintances, with his business partners, it looks more and more nefarious and more degenerate and disgusting every single thing that comes out.
All right, guys, we need to talk about Sean Diddy Combs because things just went from bad to worse. The music mogul's legal nightmare just intensified after his attorney quit the case. Let that sink in. His own lawyer walked away.
One of the lawyers representing Sean Diddy Combs in his trafficking case is quitting. Anthony Rico filed notice in Manhattan federal court.
An attorney representing Sean Diddy Combs in the trafficking case announced that he is stepping down as counsel.
One of the lawyers just quit. Not just any lawyer, but the same guy who once defended one of bin Laden's closest associates. Now, let that sink in. This attorney has taken on some of the most infamous cases in history, but even he wants nothing to do with Diddy's case. At this point, the writing's on the wall. When even the people who profit off defending the indefensible don't want to be anywhere near you, it's a wrap.
The lawyer might have found out that their client's crimes were much, much worse than they expected, like so bad that they just can't morally stick with the case and they gotta go. That might be the reason, because as far as we know, you and I, Diddy's crimes are terrible, but his lawyers know much more than what we know. They know how far Diddy might have went. So Anthony, Diddy's lawyer who left, might have seen something he didn't want to see and said, look, I can't even work with bro anymore.
Now, this particular defense attorney's reason for quitting wasn't really a reason at all, making his departure a lot more puzzling.
So, what's really going on behind the scenes? Why did this attorney really walk away? And more importantly, what does this mean for Diddy's case moving forward? Let's break it all down. If you think we're just speculating here, Stephen A. Smith just confirmed what we've all been thinking. This isn't just about a lawyer quitting. This is about the entire narrative surrounding Diddy collapsing in real time.
Rico, who was retained by Combs in September, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Combs has 5 other attorneys on his team, end quote. Let me say this. Anytime an attorney backs out, that's not a good look. Now, there could be a variety of reasons as to why this happened, and we all get that. I understand that. But anytime an attorney backs out, particularly of a high-profile case like this, is not a good look, and I'm gonna tell y'all why. Because if you are an attorney, the more acclaim your client has, the more popularity your client has, the more recognition and notoriety your client has, the more you benefit from a positive outcome in favor of that client. So that client, if Sean Diddy Combs gets off trafficking and racketeering charges and the jury finds him not guilty months from now and he's able to walk out the courtroom a free man, you know how good that makes those attorneys look? Everybody will be clamoring for the cameras. Every single one of them. They'll be going crazy. They'll all be clamoring for the cameras. So I'm saying all of that to you to say, if that's the case, let's understand what we're talking about here, okay? It's very, very important that we do that. An attorney walking away, sometimes it's because they don't get the lead chair or one of the lead chairs. Sometimes it's because a client is lying. Sometimes it's because they believe wholeheartedly that the client is going to be guilty and they don't want to be associated with that guilt because that's a loss on their record. It could be a variety of things, but the fact that we are speculating about that when the trial date hasn't even started yet concerns me, because I'm one of those people, ladies and gentlemen, who firmly believes it's virtually impossible to find a jury that's not contaminated by some kind of information that's been put out to the public before a trial begins. I'm not one of those that believes that. May 5th is May 5th. I mean, come on now. That's more than 2 months away. Jury ain't been selected yet. You trying to tell me nobody that's on the jury will have heard that a lawyer backed out of the case? I don't know about y'all, but I find that that's not a good thing for Sean Diddy Combs, for something like that to happen. That's not a good thing. What's good is if you fire the dude. But if the dude fires you as a client, even if you got 5 other lawyers, and that was the first dude you went to when you retained the services in September, That's not a good look.
See, when a case like this goes public, the jury isn't just influenced by what happens in court, they're absorbing everything the media has put out before the trial even starts. And right now, the image being painted of Diddy is nothing short of career-ending. And what's worse for Diddy is that the attorney's reason for quitting isn't even legit.
Anthony, in a court filing on Friday, said he's leaving the case. In the filing, Anthony Rico said, quote, "For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay. As a result of discussion with lead counsel Mark Agnifilo, this motion for withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I am aware that the local rule requires that an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted, there are sufficient reasons related to protections afforded by the attorney-client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs," end quote. Now, essentially in legalese, I quit, but I can't go into details because of attorney-client privilege.
Legal experts suggest that one major factor in this legal disaster is Diddy's own defense strategy. He's doubling down on claims of racial persecution, while also implying that Cassie was asking for it. Two incredibly tough positions to sell in court.
It's significant because Anthony Rico was someone that Sean Combs was clearly comfortable with. He also grew up in Harlem, and he would often sit next to Sean Combs, kind of keep him calm during court proceedings. And here Rico is now very experienced litigator, represented death row inmates, represented Al-Qaeda defendants, represented cops in the killing of Sean Bell here in New York, an experienced lawyer who now says, for reasons really unknown, that he can no longer represent Sean Combs.
But we do have ethical obligations as to why we'd have to back out of representing someone. For example, I can defend someone if you commit a crime, but I can't help you further a crime. I can't put forward a legal argument that I know is insufficient or illegal. And so there's certain barriers as to why an attorney must back out, would feel to back out, and why a judge would agree with that if they feel that their own obligations to that client aren't being met. There's also, if they feel like the legal advice that they're giving them is appropriate and the client is not taking it and it's going to lead them down a wrong path, there are multiple different ethical reasons that may not be the reason here, but it's a broad list as to why someone would do that.
And Diddy put forth two arguments recently. One, that he's the victim of a racist prosecution, and the other is that Cassie Ventura was asking for it. And those are tough defense arguments to make in front of a jury. Maybe Anthony Rico didn't want to be part of those.
To make matters even worse for Diddy, President Trump has hinted that he might release the names on Epstein's infamous list to the media. This could be absolutely devastating for the music mogul's already crumbling case. You see, once those names hit the public, Diddy would essentially be guilty in the court of public opinion. No PR team in the world could control that kind of narrative explosion.
Very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. You know, they do that for danger, too, because, you know, it endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But, yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to release the Epstein list. President Trump is the only person that actually fought on behalf of the victims against Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach when he actually caught a case. Jeffrey Epstein was put in prison and was found guilty, much like Diddy is about to be found guilty, and he's currently in prison for similar crimes.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any more shocking, listen to what Trump's Department of Defense Chief of Staff, Kash Patel, revealed about their potential declassification plans.
Give the American people the truth. And that's what they feared about Donald Trump. He's going to come in there and maybe give him the Epstein list and maybe give him the P. Diddy list. You know, he's going to come up there and maybe do all these things, and they are terrified.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the reason why Jimmy Kimmel was crying last night on his program. But also, I believe that this is something that the American public desperately want.
That's right. Just like the infamous Epstein list that sent shockwaves through Hollywood and Washington, there's apparently a Diddy list that could cause absolute chaos if released to the public. Speaking of explosive revelations, Diddy's remaining legal team is now making desperate moves behind the scenes. Sources confirm his attorneys are aggressively pushing to force the identities of witnesses and victims into the open, a strategy that's raising serious eyebrows in legal circles. They claim Diddy needs these names to properly prepare for trial, but many are calling this what it really is, a last-ditch intimidation tactic.
Just last week, the defense submitted another letter, and now they're saying they want witnesses' names as well, writing, "The government has produced over 20 terabytes of information, and it is impossible to do a proper defense investigation as to the allegations in the Enterprise letter in less than 2 months without the names of the individuals, both alleged victims and potential witnesses who are listed in the Enterprise letter." Now, that Enterprise letter is very, very important.
But the prosecution isn't having any of it. They've turned down Diddy's motion with a blistering response that has legal experts talking. Given Diddy's alleged history of witness tampering, this decision was more or less expected.
The government writes in response to the defendant's letter asking the court to rule on its motion for a bill of particulars, originally filed on October 15th, 2024. The government continues to oppose the motion, which was originally styled as a request for a bill of particulars identifying victims and has now been apparently broadened to encompass not only victim names, but also the names of a large number of potential government witnesses. The defendant provides no persuasive basis for his request, which in any event will be fully satisfied when the government provides the information on the schedule already set by the court, and the request should accordingly be denied. They go on to write, "For the reasons set forth in detail in the government's October 30th, 2024 opposition to the motion, premature identification of victims and witnesses carries significant risks in a case like this one, which involves numerous allegations of violence, coercion, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering."
Sources close to the case reveal something truly chilling about this whole situation. When Diddy was applying for bail, his alleged victims were reportedly shaking in their boots at the mere possibility he might walk free.
Is your client fearful if Diddy does get out?
As you know, I represent other clients, actual victims who have sued Mr. Combs, Diddy, in civil court, and all of them are very apprehensive about their safety if he were to be granted bond.
And can you blame them? Court documents suggest Diddy allegedly has a long history of using his power, connections, and resources to silence those who might speak against him. The thought of him potentially walking the streets while knowing their names, absolute nightmare scenario for these witnesses. This explains exactly why prosecutors fought so hard against revealing witness identities. If these vulnerable individuals were this frightened at just the thought of Diddy getting bail, imagine their devastation if their identities were suddenly exposed before trial. Despite their fear, witnesses are reportedly growing tired of suppressing their voices after years of silence. The dam is beginning to crack. Industry insiders who personally worked alongside Diddy have started coming forward with explosive allegations about what really happened behind studio doors. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge, Diddy regularly paid for women to be flown into his recording sessions specifically for S encounters.
And it wasn't uncommon to fly women in from around the country. Well, not around the country, but they could be like a 2 or 3 hour flight away type of thing. To have with people in the studio.
So it wasn't uncommon to fly women in to have studio?
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen on more than one occasion?
A couple. Usually they had a specialty in a certain tool. If they had a specialty in something, yeah, they would be flown in.
And you would be asked to do that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why were they asking you?
Well, to book a flight?
Because you were the finance man?
Yeah, and it's coming out of the budget, so. If you're the studio and you're recording, this is gonna sound horrible, but you pay for a flight for a woman to come into the studio is the same as like ordering food to the studio.
Because the label was making so much money back then.
Yeah, it's just true.
I mean, how much money do you think was spent on these flights, on bringing people in?
Oh, to be honest with you, I mean, probably like thousands of dollars.
I mean, what would you What would you even expense it under? Like how would you find under travel?
And the legal battles are not letting up on Diddy at all. In a bombshell development that's sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry, Combs was hit Monday with a new wave of lawsuits, accusing him of horrific acts. These fresh legal filings allege he women, essayed men, and even inappropriately touched a 16-year-old boy. Let that sink in for a moment. At least 6 lawsuits were filed against Combs in federal court in Manhattan, adding to the growing mountain of legal claims against the indicted hip-hop mogul. While Diddy has denied all allegations, the sheer volume of accusations is becoming impossible to ignore. According to court documents, many of these victims allege Diddy used his fame and the tantalizing promise of potential stardom to lure them to lavish parties or defueled hangouts. Once there, the situation allegedly turned nightmarish as he then attacked them. Some claim he beat them into submission. Others reveal he allegedly made chilling threats to eliminate them if they didn't comply with his demands or if they dared to speak out. Meanwhile, the remaining lawyers in Diddy's camp are scrambling to prepare strategies to nullify the damning video evidence to the best of their ability. But with each passing day, their options appear to be dwindling as rapidly as their client's reputation.
The defense have said.
So what the defense has done is they're taking an interesting tack, and I think the legal analysis is becoming fascinating. And they're saying if you look at these videos, this shows a consensual relationship, if you listen. The great thing for them, for their defense about that is that's in the past. All the folks on social media and so forth are saying, well, these people are drugged. They're saying they're drugged. Don't forget, it's easy to prove the court of public opinion, but when you get into an actual court, the federal government has approved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And someone just getting on the stand and saying, I was drugged, the defense can ask a very simple question. Where's the drug test? Where's the proof? You just saying it now, there's a lot that's going to happen, and I understand what the defense is doing. There's like, this is consent, and if it is consensual, but baby old freak-off parties aren't illegal. What's illegal is the trafficking aspect of this case, and they're saying there is no trafficking. Always was going to be the defense, always.
Well, look, we can't say who victim 1 is as the BBC because the prosecution have not announced who victim 1 is. The defense have defined them as somebody who had a consensual relationship with Sean Combs, and they are still participating, they're giving evidence to the grand jury. They've said it's consensual. I mean, how do you prove that?
Well, don't forget, here's the great thing about it. We're innocent until proven guilty. It's not how do they prove it, it's how does the government disprove it. So if you're the defense and you're showing the video, they're just like, well, look at the video. The cross-examination is going to be intense. And by that, I mean from the defense. Because of course, what's going to happen is the prosecution gets to put their witness on first, whoever it may be. And this female who had the relationship with Mr. Combs is going to get on the stand. I guarantee you she's going to be emotional. She is going to cry. She's going to talk about this relationship. She's going to talk about the fact that she was forced to do things she didn't want to do. She is going to say this in a very good way. That's evident. The cross-examination is going to be withering. It is going to take this video frame by frame. This is you with a smile on your face. In this video, anywhere whatsoever, do you say no? In this video, you are seen walking in this way. It doesn't appear that you were on drugs at any point in time. The cross-examination is going to be withering. And so everybody who is just reading, it's one thing to read evidence that we have half and half of it, but it's another thing to have a witness on the stand who is going to talk about the fights in the relationship, the fact, the money that she got, the things that she got. When we define cases, when we do case initiative, what we always say is a witness's credibility takes the stand with them.
But the secrets just keep pouring out, including the disturbing details about the baby oil that Homeland Security investigations seized during their raid on Diddy's properties.
Now, we know at least what one of the accusers in a civil lawsuit,
a brand new accuser,
a brand new one, is saying the purpose of the baby oil, and it's not what we thought.
No, this accuser, who is filed as a John Doe, says that the baby oil was laced, and that the purpose of placing the baby oil on people involved in these freak-offs
was to drug them.
Right.
And that what, according to this lawsuit, that Diddy would have the person slather baby oil all over them. that is laced with some substance. We don't know whether he's talking about GHB or something like that. We just don't know. But it would render the person kind of semi-conscious, I suppose.
Yeah, the way it's laid out in this lawsuit is a man who says he met Diddy back in 2007. He was a Vegas adult male entertainer, said he was retained for dances and so forth, but then it turned into sort of these parties that we've heard all about. And he says the baby oil was slathered all over him to the point that it was dripping off. And he says after it was applied, he began to feel drowsy, disoriented, all of those things, and became more sort of pliable to do this sort of things that Diddy was directing him to do, according to the lawsuit.
As he says, Diddy watched. We're not going to get more specific. It's about as graphic as it gets, based on this lawsuit. But suffice it to say, Diddy was up close and personal watching.
It's extremely graphic, and as you pointed out, the feds pointed out those 1,000 bottles of baby oil. That's mentioned in the criminal indictment, but never further than that. It sounded like kink shaming, you know, sort of maybe he was into baby oil, but there's no crime involved with that. It looked like it was just a pot shot at Diddy. If this is part of the forensics of what they gathered from his compound during those raids, it's going to add an entirely new dimension to this case.
And that's not all, folks. Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, has jumped into the conversation again. And this time, he's making explosive claims that could rewrite hip-hop history. Deal is now suggesting that Diddy might have been connected to the lethal incident that took Notorious B.I.G. life.
What Deal said, because when he was asked about Combs and Biggie, he remarks, so did he directly have something to do with it? He could have. And he bases that off of his perception that Combs was maybe acting a little weird leading up to the 24-year-old's death. He says on the show, the week which Biggie was murdered, he was just acting real anxious and trying to get Big at this party. And what's crazy was Big was telling people he had to be in London, but Puff was telling people he ain't going to London that whole week. So you fast forward to the day of the party and Deal says, I'm sitting up at the Beverly Hills Hotel and I get a phone call. It's about 9 o'clock. And they say, Gene, get ready, we going to the Vibe party. I was like, we going to this party? We don't have no security. But according to Deal, he tried to warn Combs that this probably wasn't a good idea. He says, yo, Puff, I got some intel, bruh. He said, what? I said, yo, man, if we go to this party tonight, one of us is gonna get killed. Somebody gonna die, because now we at East Coast, West Coast beef. He said, yo, Gene, I don't want to hear that S, so we all jump in the car.
Now, while these shocking allegations about Biggie's death might seem separate from the SA claims, they could indirectly impact the trial in ways nobody saw coming.
Do you think the name Notorious B.I.G. is going to come up at his criminal trial at all? I don't think so.
I don't think this is going to have anything to do with his criminal trial.
Right.
But it's got everything to do with jury selection. It's
Right.
got
Right.
and it's got everything to do with just where he stands in the eyes of the public and perhaps his jury as he starts a trial.
Because in other words, what you're saying is this documentary, these words, that could taint a future jury.
There's no question about it. I mean, people watch these shows. I mean, some of these shows are great, obviously, and people watch them. And now they come into this trial, not only with the allegations that are made against him in the indictment, but the idea that he might have been a party to a murder. And so it's dangerous for the defense just in terms of jury selection. And this is going to be something that they're going to have to use in jury selection to see if anybody's watched these documentaries, listen to them. And these will be jurors they're going to have to strike, you know, as they try to prepare for this trial.
So the cards are completely stacked against Diddy at this point, and it seems his attorney Rico understood this harsh reality and jumped ship before it completely sank. With each passing day, the once untouchable music mogul's empire crumbles a little more, and those who've remained silent are finding their voices. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on these shocking developments. Do you think more celebrities will be exposed when the alleged Diddy list becomes public? And don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe if you want to stay updated on all the latest celebrity drama. We're bringing you the real stories that others are afraid to touch. Turn on those post notifications so you never miss when we drop our next bombshell report. Trust me, with the way this Diddy situation is unfolding, you're going to want to be the first to know.